Hello and welcome to the opening Kickoff podcast. We have a great show in store for you guys this week. I'm your host, Dave Stomwell. I got my two co-hosts with me. Loaded show. We have a great guest that we'll talk about in a little bit. But let me introduce our guys. Co-host number one, Mr. Peyton Gerard with the Ben Roethlisberger on his background.
Yes. Said it, maybe a couple weeks ago, we need to start having a conversation about comeback player of the year. We need to have it. I mean, it's growing more and more each week. I'm not going to hype it up because I'm not going to set myself up for failure. I haven't been around a long time, and I know this. I don't want to get hurt. Brandon's gotten hurt twice in the last 2 weeks. But I still think he has hope, but I feel very good right now. Currently,
you think that brought me pain? You think the Bills losing games?
No. I believe that your hope levels were starting to grow, and they haven't moved forward in a long time.
Listen, I've been around the block multiple times. I've been around the block. This is nothing new to me.
Mm-hmm.
That voice you just heard is our guy Brandon Stevens. He was off last week, back with us this week. How you doing, big fella?
It's 2020. Just shout out to 2020 for being probably the worst year in human history. I mean, that's not true. But in at least.
Shit. There was the Black Plague. We forget.
Yeah. There was a bunch of terrible things that happened, but it's definitely up there. I'm gonna put it top 10.
Top 10.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it top 10.
I like it. All right. Well, we've got coming up here in a little bit. We got Mark Medina, our buddy from the USA Today, and what we taped this about a week ago, and a couple days ago, excuse me. And this interview is fantastic. Mark was great. We talked about the Lakers. We dove into what the bubble life was like. You have to hear who he calls out that says he could beat one-on-one in basketball. So that'll be coming up in a little bit. We'll also do our Week 7 NFL stuff, including Tua Tagovailoa getting named the starter in Miami. But we want to start first with the World Series and the Rays and the Dodgers are in the World Series, and I'm going to ask this question. Anybody going to watch it?
I mean, maybe not. Maybe.
No, I might tune in just because Sav and the family, they're from LA. So, I do. Let me ask you this. Do I get a pass to become a Dodgers fan?
Ooh.
Because, think about this. Sav gets to become a Steelers fan, right? So does that, and, I don't want any of her other teams because they suck.
Is that what happens when you get married? You just, share sports teams?
No, but I think you adapt to the best ones. I think that's part of it. You just get that chance. You don't get many bandwagon opportunities, but, in the off chance that, they're good teams, you get that opportunity. So I don't know.
Okay. So I can't go marry a Chiefs fan and then immediately adapt.
It would have to happen gradually. You know what I mean? Okay. But you have to denounce the Bills completely.
Oh, I gotta denounce the Bills. Okay.
You can't own any of their crap anymore. You just can't.
I got a helmet and a jersey. I can get rid of that. That's really about it. That's all I got.
It's really the ones you think are the lockdown, gonna stay since day one guys that are just looking to turn the corner like Brandon here. You see it. Just look at that. He's Chiefs and any Chiefs ladies out there. He's just
since day one.
Yeah, I get it, man. I don't know. But no, I don't think anyone's going to watch the World Series unless it goes a Game 7.
They killed the finals, so it's I don't see the World Series standing a chance.
If more people watch the World Series than the NBA Finals, I don't know. I guess there are still a lot of old people still alive. And
I will say
baseball,
this.
right?
I think series, in all honesty, would have been very fascinating and probably must see if the Astros were in it. Like I'm not lying. I was rooting for the Astros to get to the World Series.
Shut up.
Because
Me too.
I enjoyed.
Shut
Stop. I enjoyed the villain role that they took on, and I wanted the matchup that we didn't get. And again, all credit to Tampa Bay. We had Jared Diamond of the Wall Street Journal on about a month or so ago, and he said that they were the best team in baseball. He wasn't wrong, but there was still part of you that wanted to see the Astros and the Dodgers in the World Series. There was a part of you watching baseball that wanted that. Now, this is going to be a great series. I think this could go 7, but the issue is Tampa Bay. It's just not a team that you sit down and go, oh, yeah, I want to watch. Now, you'll watch the Dodgers because of Clayton Kershaw, Mookie Betts, Cody Bellinger, and all those guys. Tampa Bay, unless you really know your baseball, is not going to draw the average fan in. But this is still going to be a very good World Series. And I have it on right now as we're taping. But it's not.
I forgot to bet it. Who's winning?
It is 0-0 right now as we are currently taping.
Interesting.
So, Brandon, any final thoughts before we hit on one more thing before we go to break?
Yeah, my whole thing is like, they killed the finals, oh, nobody's watching basketball, I would be very surprised if the World Series numbers really smash the finals numbers. I don't think I'd be too surprised if they have more viewers by a little bit, but if it completely smashes it.
Now, if it goes to a Game 7, I could see Game 7 smashing the numbers, total. It would skew it, you know what I mean? They can have a very low viewers, and then Game 7 pushes that to a limit. I don't know. So.
Yeah, I think at that point we'd have to start looking at averages. Nobody likes averages, but at that point we have to.
And before we go to break, the other big news story that doesn't involve football or basketball was the great hockey voice, probably the guy synonymous with hockey to anybody that's watched in the last 20 years. Doc Emmerich is retiring from calling games for NBC.
Yeah.
After 45 years, I think is what he officially stood at.
Long time.
I mean, this is a guy that all three of us is synonymous with hockey. And
I mean, he's the best play-by-play caller, in my opinion, of all time.
Oh, yeah. The only other one... Gary Thorne was good, but
and you could say Al Michaels and stuff, but that's different because it's not that fast, and it's to be able to do it with such intensity, even when games are 3-0, 4-0, blowouts. He didn't drop off. The guy had energy, through the roof. So I mean, it's kind of crazy. I'm probably sure he knew this before all of COVID, that he was probably going to retire, and he didn't want to make the whole bubble and all that, about that. I just feel that's probably his style. He wasn't going to make it all about him. Look at me, the Lightning were in the finals, you know what I mean? So that's a bigger story. He doesn't want to take that away from them. So, I mean, he through and through hockey guy at the end of the day. Not going to take credit where he doesn't, he doesn't feel he needs it, but he does. He deserves it. I mean, hats off to him, man. I mean, one of the best guys to ever call any sports ever. I mean, I fear for what's going to happen to hockey now, where I don't know what it's going to look like. If Mike Milbury's on there every day, I'll end myself. I mean, he's the worst play-by-play guy since Booger McFarland. He's terrible, and he hates the Penguins.
Since Booger McFarland, well.
Yeah, he hates Sidney Crosby. So I mean, whatever, just rot.
He's got no love for this guy.
None, no respect. I mean, it's like if
respect.
Booger McFarland came out and looked at a Peyton Manning and was just not really a team guy, isn't helping out here. He needs to be picking a team up here. And you're like, dude, do you know who you're talking about? The guy is a winner, and you're just shit talking him, over and over. Grow up.
At some point, we're gonna have the conversation about what analysts get paid to do. Because I feel like they get paid to do exactly what you're describing.
They're getting paid to do what everyone that has a podcast does, but they just had a better outlet to get into it. However, they got there, whether it was playing, which I can't do, so that there gives them that, or they just knew somebody that I don't know.
Something I think happened to Brandon's screen. He's frozen over there, but we are going to go to break. When we come back, USA Today's lead NBA writer Mark Medina will join us. But first, this word from our friends at Thrive Fantasy.
Come prop up on Thrive Fantasy this season. Thrive Fantasy is a daily fantasy sports app for player props. They have eliminated the need to do countless hours of research because they only ask you about the top tier athletes, the top guys. They don't care about the bottom. There's no reason to talk about the bench guys, the third string, the practice squad. Doesn't matter. We're talking about the top of the top. And if NFL choose 10 out of 20 player prop options to build your lineup, if MLB, PGA, and esports choose 5 out of the 10 player prop options to build your lineup. Each prop has a fantasy point total associated with the over or under based on its likelihood to occur. The more points the selection is worth, the riskier it is. Rack up the most points to win a share of the prize pool. And also, don't forget, PGA season kicking right back off like it never left. Thrive is new contests for each day of the tournaments, Thursday only, Friday only, etc. So don't sweat your golfers ruining your weekend by not making the cut. Thrive has awarded over $1 million in prizes since launching in 2018 and has $50,000, $50K guaranteed in prizes for NFL Weekly. Call to action. Use promo code Kickoff when you sign up today, and you will receive an instant $50 bonus, not 20 anymore, not 20, $50 bonus match. Download Thrive Fantasy on the sports app today and prop up.
Welcome back to the Opening Kickoff Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Steinwittel. We've got a NBA season that is officially in the books, so we decided who better to have on this podcast to help us wrap a very crazy NBA season than you lead NBA writer for the USA Today, Mark Medina. Mark, welcome back. How you doing today?
Dave, I'm good. Thanks for having me on as always.
Yeah, no problem. A lot to get to. We'll talk about your time in the bubble in a little bit, but let's start with the Lakers winning the championship over the Miami Heat. And let's ask the obvious question. How important to the Laker organization was winning this title to them?
Well, I think it's huge on a number of levels. One, the Lakers organization, their whole culture was about winning championships. That's something that made them become one of the leading brands, not just in the NBA, but sports. But the reality was they had not won a title since 2010. Multitude of reasons of a perfect storm at varying stages of coaching changes, key injuries, most notably to Kobe Bryant, a lot of, front office dynamics and infighting. And, that created a perfect storm where not only did they not make the finals and win one in a decade, they had gone through a 6-year stretch of not making the playoffs, which coincided with their worst, record in franchise history. So a lot of weird things to align, and then they got themselves back up because as a result of being bad, a number of draft picks that then landed, I guess some maneuvering to get cap space and then get LeBron James, and here we are. So that was significant for that reason. But number two, they always wanted to win the championship here, but there were a lot of extra emotions because of the Kobe and Gianna Bryant tragedy with what he meant to the organization. And so I'm not using hyperbole when, Rob Pelinka, the Lakers GM, was saying that, Kobe and Gianna was guiding the team every single day through this whole ordeal spiritually. And then third, I think the unprecedented nature of this whole year with the pandemic having to shut down the season, restarting in a bubble, the fact that the Lakers were able to, navigate all those different challenges, I think brought extra appreciation for how challenging it is even in normal years to win a title.
So you had a column, transitioning to what this meant for LeBron James. You had a column about not doing the comparison between LeBron and MJ. How tired are you of hearing that argument between LeBron James and MJ? Because it seems like it's going to get ramped up now that he's got another title under his belt.
Yeah, it's nauseating and fatiguing. I mean, I'm we're not, talking about much serious issues. This is what sports is about. Comparing players can be what makes sports appealing when you're talking, in the barber shop or at sports bars. But I felt in this media culture and social media that, especially this year when The Last Dance, had premiered, on Michael Jordan, and leading up to LeBron potentially winning his fourth ring and fourth Finals MVP, instead of appreciating the moment and talking about what makes that player unique, it automatically became a referendum on, is this enough to match Michael? Why isn't it enough? And it just became, I guess, irritating, because not only does I think that brings sucks out of the joy of enjoying someone's accomplishment, but their games are so apples and oranges. One, the way they play the game is different. You debate when you say, yeah, Michael Jordan's a better scorer, LeBron James is a better passer. Like they're wired differently. And I think really the lone legitimate comparison that you can go back and forth is that, yeah, Michael learned at a much earlier age how to have a scoring mentality and just be very ruthless. But LeBron figured out a lot earlier how to empower and trust his teammates. But other than that, everything's entirely circumstantial. Different eras, different teams that they played on with how they were constructed. To go down this whole comparison game is almost a fruitless exercise. So, I knew it was inevitable that when LeBron won his fourth Finals MVP, that conversation would come up. So that was my way of sharing my 2 cents. That's pretty pointless.
I'm glad you say it, because I always make the argument, and I guess maybe I shouldn't, because I host a sports podcast and it's what we talk about, just like you were saying, but I never liked the comparing the eras, because it's 2 different styles. And this argument, you're absolutely right, is so hard to make because it's 2 different types of players. LeBron James is a little more all around, where Michael Jordan was the epitome of scoring. Ball was in his hand, he was going to score, where LeBron, he can score, but he also likes to look for that pass. So I agree wholeheartedly with you that is such a tough comparison to make, because they are instinctively 2 different players. Like Kobe Bryant was more than Michael Jordan. I think you would know better than I, covering the Lakers all those years, but that always felt like a better comparison, because Kobe had that killer instinct like Jordan did, whereas LeBron, I always kind of looked at like Magic, where he can score and carry a team scoring if needed to, but was just as good a passer as he was a scorer.
Yeah, and let's not make any mistake here. The players do want to be compared to the greats in terms of the conversation. I mean, LeBron James is saying, I want my damn respect, and he's not making any specific references, but he's said in the past, like, he is chasing the ghost in Chicago. You can't help but wonder, and it's been reported out there, that part of the reason why Michael signed up to be part of this documentary project was to reestablish what he meant to the league and maybe inform the younger generation at a time where LeBron James was, and the Golden State Warriors for that matter, were, creating greatness. But I do know, covering Kobe Bryant and a little bit of LeBron, that as much as they might enjoy being put in that same conversation with the greats, they do want to blaze their own trail. They're all their own different person. So even if they adopt certain parts of any other player's game, Kobe in regards to Michael, LeBron maybe in regards to Magic, they still want to be seen as their own person, and so judge their track record just on that. And when you do it from that standpoint, I think it makes it into a much more fun conversation. You look at what Michael did specifically with the with the hand that he was dealt with. You look at what LeBron did specifically, the hand that he was dealt with, and they're very impressive. Got 6 finals appearances out of 6 finals MVPs. He was in a different era where there wasn't player movement, but you do have to laud him that he was going through the pains of coming up short against Detroit, giving patience to Chicago's front office of continuously adding to their roster so it would be enough to get through that wall. And then, he came back from retirement, where I think on one hand you can make the argument that, yeah, he benefited from recharging the batteries a little bit. He was burned out after 93, but he had to get back into being an elite player and knocking off that rust. And even if he benefited from being on a very good team where they added Dennis Rodman, there's always a lot of things that could, be landmines, and they got through all those things. LeBron, on the other hand, to be able to not only get to the finals 9 out of 10 years this past decade, but to do it with 3 different organizations, there's a lot to be said in being able to impose his will on an organization that has so many moving parts all the time. As much as LeBron or Michael or any singular talent can make significant differences on a franchise, at the end of the day, it also takes the right combination of team chemistry and a coaching staff to get through those things. And so that's a huge testament for not only LeBron's skill, but his ability to make all those moving parts work.
Yeah, and there were a lot of moving parts in this Laker team. And I made the point when we did the show 2 weeks ago. I said they're just as important to LeBron James and Anthony Davis as those 2 guys are being your focal points. The Rajon Rondos, the Markieff Morrises, the Alex Carusos, and even Danny Green, who I know he had a awful series and missing that shot in Game 4, I think. Game 4,
Game 5.
Game 5. In Game 5, those were just as important to what LeBron and AD were able to do. So they got transitioning to looking ahead for the Lakers. What's their next moves, Mark, do you think, in terms of this roster? Can they keep this roster together to make another run next year?
Yeah, I think they have the window to do it next year. I mean, let's be clear from my end. I mean, it starts with LeBron James, Anthony Davis. I mean, they're not there on the team, this team would be entirely different. But if it was just the Lakers relying on their health and skill set and everything else was in shambles, they wouldn't have been able to win the title. It would have been, hey, they get to the playoffs, maybe first or second round, just because those talents are so good. But you're right. They had to have everything else set in place where they have the right combination of players around them. And that explains why, besides LeBron's injury his first year with the Lakers, the fact that it was a young team that still was going through its lumps, they weren't able to make the playoffs. And Frank Vogel, look, he's a good coach dating back to his time with Indiana, but he was a new head coach, and there's a lot of new pieces of having to earn everyone's trust. There was a thought came into the year that the fact that Jason Kidd and Lionel Hollins are on his coaching staff, they're veteran minds, but a lot of times, in coaching politics, sometimes they're positioning themselves to replace them. And there has been zero drama with that. And so I think that's a testament to the coaching staff. And, I think you hit on a good point that it took a right combination of it starts at the top with LeBron and AD, but then trickles down to the rest of the team to making this work. And what this means moving forward, I think the stars are aligned almost in sync where they don't really have to do much fundamentally. Anthony Davis technically can become a free agent, and he expressed uncertainty after Game 6 what he's going to do. But I would caution Laker fans not to take that as a sign of he might leave. I think it really has to do with how he has to look at the terms of his deal. He has a player option right now that's around $25 million. And I think pre-pandemic, it seemed like a foregone conclusion he would opt out of that so he could get a larger deal, maybe a 5-year deal. But here, because of the salary cap implications, where the league's going to take a drastic hit because of the pandemic and what it resulted with no games with any fans, he has to talk with his agent and also figure out the cap number with that. So does he simply just exercise that player option to buy himself a year so that in theory next year the cap will presumably be a little bit higher? Maybe, or maybe he just does a 2-year deal with a player option so that he can set himself up for a bigger supermax, when that expires. When you look at the rest of the team here, a lot of the other role players have player options. So you're looking at Contavious Caldwell-Pope, you look at Rajon Rondo, you look at Avery Bradley. They all have player options. And, I think in normal circumstances, depending on the player, maybe they felt like they would set themselves up for a pretty good deal in the open market. And so they'd opt out. And then some players might think, you know what, I'm probably not going to get anything else better. I'm just a role player. I think here, because of the climate we're in, those players aren't going to get anything better because of what the salary cap is going to be. So those guys, I think, are by default going to opt in. So really the only question marks is what do they do with Dwight Howard or Markieff Morris and Dion Waiters and J.R. Smith. And I think those unanswered questions are the unanswered questions that championship contenders all have to wrestle with. I don't think it's going to be the deciding factor between winning a championship or not, but it's a matter of how well can they improve on the edges just to help, maximize, giving the top guys an ability to rest, make life easier for them, as far as fulfilling roles. But I think by and large, even if those things don't work out the best they'd like them to, they pretty much have everything intact to be able to make another run at it next year.
So I want to talk about, before we get to the offseason, the coaching stuff, I want to ask about the Miami Heat, because it kind of felt like from the outside, not being in the bubble, that everybody kind of overlooked Miami as that team that could do what they did. Being down in the bubble, what was the conversation about the Miami Heat like in terms of how serious did people take them? Because to be honest, I don't think there were a lot of people outside the bubble that took Miami as seriously as we should have.
Yeah, I think people took them seriously. My colleague Jeff Zilgett wrote a column before the bubble season started of, hey, this team is capable of making noise. But I think to your point, there was a clear difference between respecting that team's potential and what they can do versus, okay, is this enough to get to the NBA Finals, win a championship? And the overwhelming sentiment is that you're going to put the Milwaukee Bucks and the Toronto Raptors in there. Milwaukee because of Giannis, the fact that they had, most of their returning roster from last year's short playoff run that ended against Toronto coming back. You look at Toronto, even though they lost Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green, they had the rest of their championship foundation still intact. With Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet, Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, the head coach Nick Nurse, who wound up winning Coach of the Year. So, yeah, no one coming in was thinking, okay, they're going to beat those two teams. But when they did advance and get to the finals, I don't think there was any surprise because they have Jimmy Butler. They have the Heat culture, which is, I know some people outside of Miami roll their eyes at it, but it is a real thing. They have a great coaching staff, and they have a ways of knowing how to blend the right mix of, emerging all-star talent, trusted veteran players, and some young developing players that really maximize their depth. So I think when you're looking at the grand scheme of things, obviously they came up short because most notably, they had significant injuries to Goran Dragic and Bam Adebayo that kept them limited throughout the finals. But even if they were a healthy roster, I still would have given the edge to the Lakers. But I think it still could have been a pretty compelling 7-game series. And if Miami won, I wouldn't have picked them to win, but I also wouldn't have been surprised if they won.
Right. I mean, personally, I enjoy the Miami Heat. I love Jimmy Butler as a player. And the sky's the limit because of Spoelstra. And again, what Pat Riley did, bringing in guys like Tyler Hero, Kendrick Nunn, you throw in name's escaping me. I can't think. Duncan Robinson. Like, he got the perfect pieces to go around Jimmy Butler. So Miami will be a lot of fun next year to watch. I want to ask a couple questions about some of the coaching moves. How surprised were you that the Clippers let Doc Rivers go?
I was surprised. Look, it was inexcusable that the Clippers squandered a 3-1 series lead at the Denver Nuggets, even when you account for how good Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray have been, and Mike Malone's coaching job. This was the Clippers' series to win, and their biggest opponent was themselves. But that being said, I don't put a large amount of blame on Doc there because of two things. One, if you're going to assign blame, you should also assign credit that they had a 3-1 series lead to begin with. Yes, a team takes on a personality of a head coach and the attitude, but the reality is I don't know what you could have asked for him. He was making changes. He was making rotation adjustments. I think this really came down to it's on the players. And, I would say it's on the players for the most part, with exception of maybe Kawhi. He didn't have the Game 7 performance that he should have had. But in the first 6 games, he was a beacon of consistency where I think the rest of the team, they weren't. They had this weird entitled attitude throughout the year that they were coming off a championship season when they hadn't even won yet. And so there was this real tug and pull where guys were going through the motions and, putting health over chemistry. And that was an organizational decision. And I totally understand it because Paul George is coming off a shoulder surgery. Kawhi showed that his load management program worked in Toronto, but it really, I think, created this trickle-down effect of the players not really having the same level of effort and consistency and chemistry. And I think that there was, I don't think a personality divide, but there was a divide between philosophies of these were the scrappy Clipper underdogs that tested the Warriors as an 8th seed. And then you had players like Kawhi and Paul George that were, thinking more rest versus chemistry. But I don't put that on Doc. That was an organizational decision. And the same thing, I don't know what's the better alternative than Doc right now. I think that this is a huge risk that they're taking because their window right now to win a championship is next season. And if next season doesn't work out, I mean, Kawhi might want to leave. Paul might want to leave. And when you're adding a new coach there, that's asking a lot. That's not to say that they're still going to be in the contending mix, but I feel like Doc would have given them the best opportunity to do that. But, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, that one I found fascinating, and I think he landed in a great spot in Philadelphia. Right now, Mark, what do you think out of the openings that are left? Which one's the most desirable job in the NBA?
Well, I would say the Clippers because I still think that they're a contender. I don't put them as the favorite, but they're in the mix. But that's also a high risk, high reward. You are jumping into a situation that you have to win next season. And if not, that team might be drastically different after the offseason. But so that being said, that would be the most desirable, but I think the biggest position that would put you in a position to succeed, I think, is New Orleans, because they're a rising talent. You have Zion, who in theory should be coming off a much cleaner bill of health, much more prepared to build off of an impressive resume he already showed because he doesn't have to be part of, just disrupted circumstances of missing the first 44 games, being in and out of the lineup during the bubble because of a family situation, and then having a really young roster around him to build with Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball and Josh Hart. But I think they're more of a long-term team. I think they're a playoff team next year, but they're not going to be a championship contending team. But I think that they will be that team, in 2, 3, 4 years. So that's where I would handicap it.
All right. Now, I can't have you on and not talk about what the bubble was like. So let's get it. We got to know. Yeah. So I'll ask you this: what were your expectations going into the bubble?
Yeah, it's a good question. My expectations was that I had to be prepared to just be there for a while. I was there from July 12th to September 9th. I was also expecting the unexpected, if that makes sense. So I was aligning myself to just be prepared to deal with inconveniences, things thrown at you, unique things. But I thought a lot of those things was going to be more health related. Look, if I was concerned that my life was going to be in danger, I wouldn't have gone down there. And to USA Today's credit, they didn't give me pressure one way or the other to do it for any health reasons, personal reasons. But I thought that it was going to be an ongoing thing of the league having to manage a positive test here, a positive test there, isolating that player, isolating that team staffer. But it was a larger community, but you'd always have to be at guard and on edge. And that wasn't as much of a concern because there was literally 0 cases. But it happened because everyone enforce the rules. But I think that became such a normal thing that you didn't worry about it. You know, we knew that everyone's getting tested. You have to wear masks. It's being enforced. So I think that level of concern, it quickly dissipated after the first few weeks. I would say after the first 3 weeks, because every week the NBA was releasing statements that there were 0 positive tests. I think I don't want to say I was naive to this, but it was one of these things that until you actually experience it firsthand, you can't really know what it's like until you do it. And that is just the idea of not just being away from your place from an extended period of time, but the idea of dealing with that monotony every single day. I mean, you're talking, in my case, you know, for the most part, there were maybe like 3 or 4 days where you could have kind of a recharge day. But other than that, you're talking from July 12th to September 9th of waking up around 9 o'clock, doing your breakfast, getting tested, getting your day started, going to practice or a game in the afternoon, and then a game in the evening around 9 o'clock, and getting your workday done at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And so, you know, I have the perspective of you're not working manual labor, but even if it's not manual labor, pulling those kind of hours, not just on one day, but almost 2 months in a row, like it takes a lot out of you. And so what this means for the players, you know, it's a different job than what we have, but you're talking about them. They're playing games every other day. They're having practices that day. They're trying to find that perfect balance of squeezing in as much time as you can to prepare for your next opponent, shed off rust from basketball since March, and resting your body, and then fitting in time to be in touch with family. And that's a huge challenge, not just to do one day, but to do it for 2, 3 months in a row. That's a heavy toll. And so even if you attach all the qualifiers of, oh yeah, well, you're at a nice resort, you get paid well. Yes, it's necessary to keep that in perspective, but you're also not having a lot of time to have any sort of days to clear your mind and release from just doing normal things. And look, the teams and we had access to do those things of, you know, there's golf courses, you can go fishing, you can go to the gym, and people took advantage of those things. But the reality is those were the exceptions, not the rule, because there just weren't enough hours in the day to really do all those things. So I think that was kind of the underrated part of the bubble of just dealing with that day-to-day monotony of the same thing every day, and then just having to have the physical and mental fortitude to carry on those long hours and work responsibilities for essentially 2-3 months in a row.
Yeah, I can only imagine from the player, coach, or even to your side, just how grueling that would be to just feel like you're not in a rut, but in a way you're in a rut because you're doing the same thing over and over, and there's no escaping it. I can't imagine what it was like. So, Mark, what did you do when you did get the downtime? I saw you did some fishing. What else did you do to recharge?
Yeah, I did 2 fishing trips. There were a few times where, I mean, for me, my specific role at USA Today, because I'm a national writer, I'm not tied to a specific team. And so because of that, I was usually at a game pretty late at night. But there were maybe 2 or 3 nights where there wasn't a game. And so you were able to there was a team dinner that the NBA organized, the PR staff with media. And then there were a few nights of, getting drinks outside with some different PR staff and media members. And then other than that, what you do to recharge is just when you can sleep in, do it. When you can get some exercise time, do it. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it was a very much of a work day. And so, I think it's very necessary in this time because of this pandemic and what it's done for people's health and also unemployment. Like, look, I have a great job. I mean, you're covering basketball, but this idea that, oh yeah, you're just watching games and kicking back, like that's not what it is. That's not what the job entails. It is a very demanding job, and even in normal times, it's a very demanding job because of the work hours, the travel demands, the time away from any sort of personal life, but it's what you sign up for. So I think in a way kind of took pride in the fact that I was able to have the physical and mental makeup to get through that and do the best work that I could even under those tough circumstances.
Yeah, and not because you're on, you did great work. Reading your columns was always a joy of mine. We gotta have some fun here. We saw some videos. Chris Haynes did some pranks and messed around a little bit with some of the other reporters.
Yeah.
Did anyone get you? Did anyone pull a prank on you while you were down there?
Well, Chris, he's a great friend. Much respect. I'm blessed that he tried to pull a prank. I know that. So just to go inside baseball here, the story of that is that he was in the bubble earlier than most of the media members were. So when we were in quarantine, he was out of quarantine. So he decided to knock on people's doors. He did not do that to me. But what he did was, my first night that I was out of quarantine, I was just trying to get a sense of my surroundings. And it was one of those things like the eve before the first day of school of going to practice. You're excited and you're kind of anxious. Like, you want to make sure that you're waking up on time to get tested so you're able to get to the practice facility in time and you know where the bus stop is. So what I did once I was done with my work, around 10 o'clock at night, I decided to map out where I needed to be. So I decided to walk to where the testing site was. So I knew, okay, this is how you get to it. I walked to the bus stop. Okay, this is how I knew where to get to it, because they told us, but I hadn't physically done it. So I wanted to have that sense just so I knew where I was going, and in the off chance that for whatever reason there's a delay in testing and you got to rush to get to the bus stop, like there wasn't any thinking involved. And so I'm walking out here at like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and he sees me and he's like, Medina, what are you doing? Like, are you venturing out of the bubble already? And I explained, I was like, no, this is what I'm doing. He didn't believe me. He thought I was trying to explore the bubble and see what I could get away with and get into some trouble. But the thing that was very weird when he said that is that he saw me because I was walking along the pool and he was doing a midnight swim by himself in the pool. And so when he was calling me out, Medina, what are you doing walking out late at night? I was like, Chris, what are you doing swimming in the pool at midnight by yourself? Like, what? You preparing for the Olympics or something? You know? So we had a good laugh out of that. And I think on top of the weird randomness of that is that I hadn't seen him in person since the season ended because we were all stuck in our home. So that was kind of the other underrated part, just the idea of just seeing people. It was such a foreign concept, and especially in our field where we know everyone and we see each other all the time, being at games and practices, that interaction itself, it was cool to share some laughs and give each other a hard time again.
All right, so who is the biggest jokester among all the national reporters? Who's the guy that you go that always gets everybody laughing in those rooms?
It's hard to say who's the biggest jokester, but I know specifically for me, I got to give a shout out to the Boston Globe's Gary Washburn. He's a great guy, great writer, and he does a lot of good impressions, and he likes imitating my voice. You know, I think, as a lot of people will say, there's kind of a drawl to it. It's very deliberate. It can sound slow at times, and he likes exaggerating that a little bit. So, for me personally, I enjoy when he did that, and you know, I got to see him every day for almost 2 months, so he did that pretty frequently.
All right, I'll get you out of here on this. If you had to play one-on-one versus one of the national sports reporters, who do you think you could take and why? I'm putting you on the spot, Mark.
Well, I'm gonna tell him to listen to this. He wasn't in the bubble when I was there, but he was in the bubble eventually. Taking on Dave McMenamin. I mean, he sees himself. He sees himself from ESPN. He sees himself. You know, he was student manager for the basketball team. He knows the game. He likes to play. But here's the reality. I haven't played basketball since like 2012 because I just don't want to get injured. Like, I'm perfectly healthy. I'm still young at age 35. But you're more likely to get hurt with the pounding running up and down the court as opposed to getting after in the weight room. So, like, I decided, you know what, like, while I'm ahead in my 20s, I'm not going to do that anymore. So he would have it over me that, like, he's played much recently than I have. But in 2011, during the lockout, I beat him in a game of 2-on-2, and he was pretty upset about it. So, and it was won pretty fairly. So I think maybe he would win now because he's played much more recently. But if I had kept up playing, I would have been smoking him.
Mark, you know what? I'll take you. I'll take you in the one-on-one game. I think you got him. I think you got him. Oh,
yeah,
man.
maybe he would beat me in a shooting contest right now, but you know, I feel like I'm in pretty good shape, so I'd wear him down with my conditioning.
Yeah, and drive to the paint. I mean, I watch him on ESPN. No knock on Dave. He's a little slender. He's gonna be tough in the paint. You just body him a little bit. I think you got Dave beat there.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, to Dave's credit, he is strong. It looks like he's put on some muscle, but yeah, I'd smoke him in a conditioning and weight training session, and that can also make a difference on the court. You know, it's a game of attrition and endurance, so I just wear him out that way.
I like it. All right, Mark Medina from the USA Today. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll catch back up with you when free agency gets going.
All right, thanks so much, man. Good talking with you as always.
All right, we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Opening Kickoff Podcast. Dave Steinwaddle, Peyton Gerard, Brandon Stevens. You just heard the great interview we did with USA Today's own lead NBA writer, Mark Medina. You can catch up on that anytime. By the way, we are now on YouTube. You can watch three guys with a face for radio talk about sports. If you don't want to listen to the podcast, you can find the video version of it now on our YouTube channel. Just search up Opening Kickoff Podcast, and you can find all the latest episodes of this podcast. We are so excited to be on YouTube, growing the brand. And let's talk about a guy that's brand is skyrocketing, and that is Tua Tagovailoa was named the starting quarterback for the Miami Dolphins today. They do not play this coming Sunday. They have a bye. They will be back next Sunday against the Los Angeles Rams. But this took some people by surprise. Miami is 3-3. They've won 2 in a row, albeit blowouts against a Niner team that wasn't very healthy, and against the Jets, which we'll get to the Jets in a little bit. But, Brandon, I'll start with you. How surprised were you that the Dolphins made this move?
I was surprised that they called it this early. I thought, Fitzpatrick had at least another, week or two before he turned into Fitz tragic. We see this every year with him, right? He comes out super hot at the beginning of the season, and then sort of around the middle of the season, he just gets like stone cold. So I think the Dolphins are trying to get ahead of that. I don't know what they saw from Tua in the the limited minutes that he got in the last game in a blowout, but I'm guessing that they just wanted to get him in a decent position just to see, what he was going to be capable of doing. I mean, 3-3, second in the division. I mean, you're this is about as good as you can get right now. So, just trying to set him up in the best possible scenario. I think just to see if he'll, react positively or negatively. It's just this is the ultimate test for him right now.
The timing of it just is what gets me to an extent. Look, we all knew the eventual plan was that Tua was going to take over the quarterback position in Miami. This was no secret. This wasn't like throw out Paxton Lynch taking the starting quarterback job in Denver or something like that. We expected this to happen. We didn't expect it to happen at this moment because, again, Ryan Fitzpatrick was not playing terrible football. In fact, he was probably playing the best football he had the last couple years with this Miami team. They were trending upward. And I got to ask a question because we haven't seen Tua at the professional level. I don't know if he's going to make that much of a difference right now compared to Ryan Fitzpatrick. Like, that's where if I'm trying to make the decision, it's almost like, does it make sense to make the move? Because does Tua make us that much better? And I think the answer right now is I don't think Tua puts them over the top and puts them in the playoffs.
The only reason I'm going to disagree is because I'll go with your same point. Does it help? Does it not? Let's say it doesn't. Let's say it stays exactly the same. That defense is underrated. I just think that the Dolphins' defense is very underrated. They can win games. They can be competitive. We saw what happened to the Patriots. I think they saw that as an opening, and obviously the Bills lost this week. They saw it as an opening where they can make a jump, and they may not have to win the AFC East, but, 7th spot, I think they could get it. They could get the 7. It's not impossible to think about. With how bad the Texans have been, it's a very real possibility. And I think if you're going to do this, right, like if you were going to make this jump, which I think this probably comes from the ownership, those guys want to see Tua. They want to see the guy they drafted. They feel like he's healthy. They feel like they're in a solid spot to make the transition on a bye week to get him acclimated for whatever. Ryan Fitzpatrick is probably the best guy to help mentor right now in the NFL. Like, guy's seen every offense, been a part of so many different teams. Like, he's probably the best guy to help with this transition. Does it suck because Fitzmagic is probably over? Yeah. But, what would be the point of having this guy drafted in the first round and he sits out the whole first year? What's that doing? Like, is he going to develop and get crazy better doing that? No, I don't think so. I think you might as well play him. You're in a good spot. I think he's probably going to play pretty well. I don't know how I don't think Tua is going to play bad. Like, he's not going to kill that team. I just don't think it's possible.
And I just want to clarify, I'm not saying he's going to kill the Miami Dolphins. It's just when you look at it, that's the question you have to have is, does Tua put you over the top? And I get where you're coming from, but to me, I just don't know what Tua's going to look like at this level right now.
You feel like they're doing Fitzmagic dirty is really what it is. You feel like they're doing them dirty a little bit.
To an extent, because it would be different if he wasn't playing well.
Yeah.
But like he was playing well going into this. It's the best we'd seen him in a while. So that's where it's like the timing just doesn't make sense. And that's where, I do kind of feel bad for Ryan Fitzpatrick, because you're sitting there, if you're him, and going, what more do I need to do? Like, we're 500 now, right in the thick of a playoff hunt, because Buffalo decided to be exactly who we thought they were in New England, because of all the opt-outs, and Cam Newton and whatnot is not where they expected it to be. So you're in a position to win a division and go to the playoffs, and Ryan Fitzpatrick got you there. It's almost like – go ahead.
My whole thing is, I think they truly are trying to get ahead of this with Fitzpatrick. No, we saw it when he was in Tampa Bay. Like, he looked really good for those first couple games, right? Was he in Tampa? He was in Tampa Bay, right? Okay. We saw him look really good, and then he started to look terrible. Got benched anyway, right? So this is not like something new that we're seeing with Fitzpatrick. He does this. So I think there was a conversation that had to be had at some point with Flores and his Magic and Tua, and they're like, yo, listen, we're gonna have you come out, play the first couple games. Probably at that bye week, we're gonna switch to Tua, right? The fans want to see Tua, the management wants to see Tua. I also think there might be a little, just a little bit of pressure from LA, with Herbert looking the way that he does. They're like, let's put our guy out there, because we know he was better than Herbert in college. Let's put our guy out there, and let's see if he can be better than that.
By the way, before we move on, we will get a Herbert versus Tua matchup in a couple weeks, and then we'll get a Tua versus Burrow matchup. I believe in late November, maybe early December, we'll get that. So something to keep an eye on. We want to talk about another quarterback, a guy that we are not the biggest fans of at this podcast. We have made that known. Sam Darnold. The Jets are 0-5.
They're not winning a game. They're not winning a game. You can't even convince me, looking at their schedule, like they're going to win a game. Like, they play the Chiefs in what, 2 weeks?
Yep.
They play us next week.
That spread against the Bills, to put this into perspective, is -13 right now, and probably going to hit 14 or worse by the time kickoff hits. I might even take it. I literally might take that. And I can't even imagine what the Chiefs one is going to be. It's got to be 20 points. It's going to have to be. It's going to be the biggest spread you ever see in a modern NFL game. Like, I don't understand how Adam Gase is a fucking job. I don't get it. I said it. I really don't get it. He has to be blackmailing somebody.
Because I watched that game on Sunday, flipping between that and the Packer-Buck game. And
that shouldn't have been a 4:00 game. Oh,
that's bad.
NFL
first off, that is a team in New York that could care less about playing football. They really do. Like, they just look like they're out there to go through the motions and get out of the game unscathed. You need to make I don't know why they won't make the move, because you almost need to just get these guys motivated in some way. And if you're the Jets, the simplest solution is fire Adam Gase and put Greg Williams in. Like, it worked for Cleveland. They started winning some games when Cleveland got rid of Hugh Jackson and put Greg Williams in.
Look. Bounties up. Start bounty hunting. That's the only way you're going to get these guys motivated.
If you're the Jets, this has nothing to do with turning it around and being a winner. You're done with that. You're just trying to find out who's going to be here, because you're watching Joe Douglas, you feel for the guy, because everybody wants to bag Joe Douglas as GM. Joe Douglas was hired after Adam Gase was hired. Like,
And Adam
was
Gase got
fired.
the last guy fired.
Right. Yeah, bingo. He got that guy fired because he didn't like him. Joe Douglas got brought in right before a draft, had to do a draft prep on the fly. This was his one true offseason. He got saddled with a horrible C.J. Mosley contract, a horrible Le'Veon Bell contract for a guy that didn't want to play for the Jets. We now know that. That's why he's in Kansas City. Like, everything about this is horrendous. And the fact that Adam Gase still has a job is fascinating because you need to now make a move to shake this up. And it can't be trades because the guys are going to be like, oh, I'll trade me. You can trade me for a peanut butter sandwich. Just get me out of town. But I want to ask a question about Sam Darnold because as it looks right now, Trevor Lawrence is the presumptive number one pick. The Jets look like they're going to pretty much be on their way. They are the only winless team left in football. I want to ask this question. What's going to happen to Sam Darnold here, guys? Because there is a consensus around the league that there's a lot to like in Sam Darnold's game. And we'll have a guy on next week that will hopefully give us an idea on what exactly it is about Sam Darnold. But what's going to happen to him and where could he possibly go?
I listened to, I think, Deion Sanders on PMT on Monday, and he said something I wasn't even thinking about. He's going to pull an Eli Manning if he gets drafted by them. He's just going to refuse to play for him. He'll just refuse, flat out. Say, if you draft me, I'm not playing for you. That would be the only thing. I also wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibilities that he just sticks around and stays. I mean, well, does it matter? Is anyone going to contest Trevor Lawrence now until then? Like, for the number one pick? It doesn't matter when Trevor Lawrence goes into the draft. He's going to be the number one pick. That's just, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I can't see him doing that, though. You're leaving a lot of money on the table.
But, what do you get? You're still going to make it again the next year.
Maybe.
And maybe the cap will be better because they're going to have to do a whole new CBA deal. The players' agreement. So, like, maybe they get rid of the whole Sam Bradford, 4 years and that's it for rookies. Maybe they're like, we can guarantee you $50 million right out the gate. Like, maybe they'll bring that back. Probably not, but, I mean, and he's a Clemson guy through and through, so, I mean, maybe he will stay. I mean, it would be interesting to see. I don't think he'll play for the Jets. Like, I just don't. There's no way you willingly know that you're going to go. You know you're not going to fix that. I don't think there's any quarterback right now that can fix that problem because you don't have anything to help you. You have nothing. No coaches. You have no general, front office. You have nothing to help you.
Well, that's what I think is going to change. I don't think Gase. I don't think Gase is there next season. I don't think he is. I think he's there for the remainder of this season. I mean, they said that already. His job is safe for this season. He's not getting fired this season. So next season, he's not there. There's no chance. No chance he's there. I mean, you get rid of Gase, and again, the Jets don't automatically become a desirable situation for anybody, but you feel a little better because your coach isn't an actual idiot. You might have somebody competent back there.
They shouldn't have got rid of Todd Bowles. They shouldn't have gotten rid of Rex Ryan looking back at it. Like, all of these guys won them at least some fucking games. This dude can't win. He sucks.
There's something, I feel like there's a conversation that needs to be had if Adam Gase finds a job on any coaching staff after this. Right? Because, we're seeing it with bad coaches, right? We've seen it with McCarthy. We see it with Gase. We've seen it with Garrett. All these coaches that go places and never win anything, that just get, new head coaching jobs and at other teams, while there's people who are out there who do win things on winning teams that are capable of becoming head coaches that don't get these opportunities. And it's just why.
Better than Kellen Moore right now that could coach an off. I know a guy in Kansas City that could coach an offense better than Kellen Moore, and I
know that same guy.
That's not. I mean. No cap, no lie detected, whatever you want to call it. I know that for a fact. And I agree with you. The other thing is, I don't know where or how Adam Gase got that title of an offensive guy. His numbers suck.
Terrible.
He's never been ranked above 20 in any offensive category from Miami to here. Like, never. So I don't know who started that rumor or that lie, but applaud you. You need to go be in politics and get those guys' lives even better. Like, I mean, it's crazy. It's absurd.
And my thing is, first off, I don't think Sam Darnold will be back with the Jets next year. He'll get traded, but the problem is, what damage will you have done to Sam Darnold by the end of this year? I mean, the reality is, if I'm him, I don't come back. I would not for this team. I would take my losses and just get flipped and hopefully get sent somewhere where he's got an opportunity to just be the backup, take some of that pressure off, reset himself, refocus, because there is talent. You talk to anybody about Sam Darnold, and we've talked to people that have said he's got the talent to be a pro quarterback. There's just some things in his games that need to be worked. Peyton, the speculation seems to be the Steelers are a
I don't
spot.
think so. I think that just happened because they asked Juju about him, and that was it. I think that was. I mean, I would.
Right for y'all though, because like,
But yeah, I was
he's
just
better
about to
than
say,
the other two.
I think the best options. I'd say these are the two best fits for him: Pittsburgh or the Patriots.
I can't see Bill doing that.
The Patriots.
He took Cam Newton on, and that was.
You can't compare the two.
I'm not comparing it. I'm just saying if you're just saying he doesn't want a project. I mean, Cam Newton, you didn't know what was going to happen.
What is Cam Newton a project?
Did you watch him play football on Sunday?
MVP and the man went to a Super Bowl. And what
happened.
world is this guy a project?
Right now, it's turning into a project.
How?
Did you watch the Broncos didn't score a touchdown?
Man, dude ain't even practiced in a week.
I don't care.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Cam, look, I'm trying to Cam Newton. If you somehow hear this, I'm going to bat for you. They are trying to slander your name.
I'm not saying is I expect more of him. I'm holding him to the standard that you're holding him to, but you're not criticizing him.
But let's talk about the offense, right? I mean, if you want to talk about Cam Newton, let's talk about the offense, right? Give me 3 weapons on that Patriots offense. Now, or just name 3 people. Name 3 people.
Rex Burkhead, N'Keal Harry.
Oh.
Slater's a great special team
guy.
Offense,
Jules Edelman's over there crying him to a picture of Tom Brady every night. Just he's upset that he's still there. He's playing like garbage. N'Keal Harry, we expected much better things from N'Keal Harry, and I'm surprised that he's not in that sort of like Juju, AJ Brown sort of area, somewhere up there where he's showing potential. He's getting the targets. I'm surprised he's not at that level yet. I definitely expected him to be there by now. But the rest of that team is nothing. I mean, you got Burkhead, you got James White. I don't even know who the tight end is.
It doesn't really matter who the running backs are, though. I've always just thought that it doesn't matter who the running back is for New England. It really doesn't.
Yeah.
I've seen Rex Burkhead score 3 touchdowns on the Steelers, and the guy literally hasn't touched the ball the entire season. So it doesn't matter who's running the ball.
Yeah.
I'm not concerned. The passing game is what concerns me with the Patriots. But
the passing game is abysmal. It's bad.
Exactly. It's saying it needs to be better. It needs to be Cam Newton standards.
Well, in order for that to happen, you're gonna have to give me something. I mean, even in those later Carolina days, he had something. I mean, you're looking at nothing right now in New England.
All right, one other quarterback I want to touch on, and then we'll look ahead to Week 7. Jimmy Garoppolo came back. Niners beat the Rams, but there feels like a very big conversation is going to happen at the end of the year revolving around Jimmy Garoppolo. The guaranteed money, I believe, backs off after this year. He's been paid the majority of his contract. What do you guys think the future is for Jimmy Garoppolo? And give you guys a minute. I would not be surprised if at the end of the year San Francisco does not move on from Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that
I don't know.
I think there is something that bothers the organization with Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know what it is. I can't figure it out.
He looked good on Sunday night.
No,
he didn't look bad. Like,
he looked good to me, but it just feels like that there's something that whether it's Shanahan or Lynch, that they just sit there and aren't happy with. And I don't know what it is. Because honestly, Jimmy Garoppolo, I think this is the best he's ever going to be. He's never going to be a top-tier quarterback. Yeah. He's going to be right around a Ryan Tannehill type of quarterback.
We're revisiting that conversation.
We will revisit it.
I'm ready to put him at 10. I'm just ready to do it. I mean,
ready
Lord.
to put who at 10?
Tannehill.
Stop it.
I mean.
Stop it. Stop it. I'd love to see that guy win a game with no Derrick Henry. I'd love to see it happen. I'd love to see it happen.
You're about to see it Sunday. You're about to see it Sunday when he gets under 100 rushing yards. You're about to see something.
Yeah, they play the Steelers, right? Yeah, I can't wait to watch him crumble against it like an actual good secondary. I can't wait. Should be a fun time. Ryan Tannehill. No, Jimmy G is definitely the quarterback of the future for the 49ers. I can't see them. I mean, you look at who they have, C.J. Beathard, Nick Mullins. Like, these aren't guys that you can go to.
I really thought they were the same person for, like, smooth.
Oh, me too.
I just, like,
forgot
they were different.
On the bench, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, they look different.
Yeah.
But, yeah, those aren't guys that you go to in the future. I mean, Jimmy, he's fresh off of an injury. I mean, he looked good. If this is the best he's going to be and he just played in a Super Bowl, I mean, you can't always have – we've seen it before. You can't always have the stud quarterback and the great defense, right, to win you a Super Bowl. Seen it with the Eagles. You can argue that we saw it with the Giants. I mean – those Eli Manning years, was he good? Yes. Was he like top 5 QB? Probably not. I mean, it is Eli Manning we're talking about here. But you could definitely have a guy who, is playing in that Nick Foles role, and his defense is out of this world, and he's got offensive weapons, and they put that together and win a championship. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo needs to be in that Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, sort of like echelon. I don't think he needs to play, like those guys in order to win. I think he has a great supporting cast around him, and if he just, looks just slightly better than he did last year, I think they'll be all right. They just need to get healthy. I think that's their biggest issue right now is injury.
I'll throw this last one at you. The rumors mill is flying in Atlanta. Conversation that they could be blowing this team up. Matt Ryan and Julio Jones are two names that they have talked about. Realistically, how big of a market, if Atlanta chooses to do this, would there be for Matt Ryan and Julio Jones? Because I don't know. But you see, you're banking.
Julio is a guaranteed.
Yes.
I don't know if you get a first round just because they're gonna hold those injuries so far against you now. Like they're just gonna be like, but like they're gonna say he missed this game, missed this game. He didn't record any stats here. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
but
I know
he's double back and say, look at his healthy games. Right? I just did that to somebody in fantasy. They're like, hey, I want to give you DJ Chark and David Johnson for Julio Jones. I go, in the 2 healthy games he's played, 50 points. Yeah. I mean, like, we're talking about the under 10 catches, over 100 yards, touchdowns. Like, it's hard for me to look at Julio Jones and say, yeah, there's no way I can give you a first round pick for this guy.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get that. Matt Ryan, I mean, I don't know what you get for him. There's value. There's still value in it. So, like, I'd say if you're like you have a solid defense, like let's say if you have a team like a Titans, like let's say like Miami, if they didn't have Tua or Fitzpatrick, like that would be a good fit because they have a good defense and he can make it work. But like I don't know where Matt Ryan fits right now.
Quarterback's a tough position.
Yeah,
It's
like
tough.
I mean, you know he's gonna get you yards. We're just
And that's really about it.
yeah, like I don't know. The Julio one was just like it was probably like when they read that like Matt Ryan walked up to Julio and goes, "Hey man, did you hear like they're gonna trade us? Like I wonder what they're gonna ask for us." Julio's probably like, "You mean for me? You mean like what they're gonna ask for me? They might give you away. That's what they might do. That's what
They
they're
might
like."
package you with me.
Yeah, like you. There's no we. It's me. So I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. I think Matty Ice can still deal with football. I mean, better than probably most quarterbacks. But I mean, depends what offense. So I don't know.
I could see him getting dealt to Dallas. Like if you were gonna do that, if you're gonna do that in the midseason, you can't continue with Andy Dalton. And if you want to have any hope in trying to make the playoffs, you gotta get Matty. You gotta get a quarterback. Andy Dalton is just not one. You gotta have somebody.
Maybe the Bears
Then
just
again,
try
they
to
might
get him
offer
too.
you the same thing because the Cowboys' offensive line is horrible, and you need a quarterback that's going to be able to be mobile in the pocket. And that's Andy Dalton's thing is he's not mobile in the pocket. I mean, we saw it in the game yesterday.
You can't have Andy Dalton throw 55 times. Like that's the other thing you can't do.
You can't have Zeke fumble on back-to-back touches. That is what can't happen.
He lost me my fantasy game. Thanks, Zeke. Really appreciate it. Shout out if you see this. Shout out.
Let's move ahead to some big games. This is a pretty decent slate of games. Again, albeit hopefully happening. We'll start with Peyton's team, the 5-0 Steelers, the 5-0 Titans, the best game on Sunday afternoon. Who gets to go to 6-0? Brandon Stevens.
Steelers. Forget the Titans. In the answer. Period. I'm done.
I'll say this. I think I might have picked the Titans. In all seriousness, if it wasn't for Taylor Lewan going down tearing his ACL. If Tennessee's offensive line was fully healthy, I would say because Tennessee's at home, I think they get it done. But without Taylor Lewan, they're going to have a hard time slowing down Bud Dupree and TJ Watt. I think Pittsburgh goes to 6-0 and sets up what's going to be a really fun game in 2 weeks against the Baltimore Ravens. But this is going to come down to the wire. The Titans need to be in the conversation with everybody for the top team in the AFC. They are that good. So you can't take that away from them. But without Taylor Lewan, I'll take the Steelers by 1 score. Yes, Mr. Gerard.
There's his answer.
You do realize we are also a podcast. Like they can't
that
see
handsome goatee.
But now we're on YouTube. I mean, just look at him. Look at his face. I mean, that guy's a winner. He isn't losing to Tennessee. That defense isn't losing to Tennessee. I mean, you may get a big run here. You may get a big catch there. It can't last. And also, I want to ask you this. Is Taylor Lewan actually as good as people think he is? Or is he only – do people think he's good because he talks a lot of shit?
No,
Because
I think he is that good.
Do you think he was going to stop TJ Watt and Bud Dupree all day?
Look, with the Pittsburgh pass rushers, I will freely admit you're never going to stop them because they are super talented. The biggest thing is slowing them down, and that's what a good tackle can do against a good pass rusher. You're still going to get yours, if you know what I mean. It's just like a basketball player. You can try and stop LeBron James, but you know he's going to get his points. That's a good pass rusher. You're trying to slow them down, not completely take them out of the game because unless you're a premier all-pro, you're not going to do it. But Taylor Lewan is good enough that he would slow them down enough to give Tannehill time to make some plays where it isn't every time he drops back, you look like Carson Wentz getting your brains beat in because you don't have an offensive line. That's what Taylor Lewan would do.
I'll say this, right? This would have been the first week that Taylor Lewan would have played a legit pass rusher.
That's fact.
That's fair. That's fair.
Because
I mean, the Bills' defense is a shadow of his former self from last year.
Yeah,
so I can't say we would have done anything. Minnesota doesn't have. I mean, they got Daniil Hunter, but he's not a pass rusher. He's more of a run
He didn't
stopping
even
guy.
play. Hasn't even played. I don't think
Oh,
he's played a
okay.
game
So
this year. So it's like that's a
Jacksonville's
stretch.
got nobody, and Denver's missing Von Miller. They got Bradley Chubb, who I mean, he's okay, but like okay.
Yeah. Yep. I just think it's like this. If we can hold Derrick Henry under 100 yards, which I very well think we can. I don't know how we do. I think that is the key to the game. I mean, when was the last time we've seen Derrick Henry have a bad game? Can you remember it? I can't. Like, I just can't. But I guarantee you, if you look back, when he doesn't have 100 yards, I bet you they lost that game. And also I'll say under 100 yards.
I mean, his game against Jacksonville wasn't too impressive. 25 carries, 84 yards. I mean,
and they almost lost that game.
Yeah, they did almost lose that game.
Exactly. So it's
that's the key. That's what I'm saying. Like, I want to see Ryan Tannehill command this offense without Derrick Henry. Then I'll believe in Ryan Tannehill. I don't believe in Ryan Tannehill until he can show me.
I'll give you this. The three big keys to that game. Derrick Henry, number one. Number two is the Steelers' offense needs to not, if they get out early, needs to go run no huddle and put their foot on their throats. Because there's this whole, we get like a 14-point lead and then we just start running the ball on like 2nd and 20. It's like so stupid. Like, you guys just scored 2 touchdowns. Go, keep going. Go, go, go. Like, I understand you're worried Ben, can't keep up a whole game. I don't think that's true. I think he can. And number 3 is on 3rd and long for defense, get off the field. Do not let Tannehill make some miraculous play to A.J. Brown or whoever. Like, get off the field. Get off. So, I'm going the Steelers. Of course.
Let's go to Arizona, where we have an intriguing 4 o'clock game. The unbeaten Seahawks and the 4-2 Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray completed only 9 passes in the win over the Dallas Cowboys. Are the Seahawks going to 6-0 this weekend? Peyton?
Yeah, and I literally think they'll win by 3 points like they always do. Like, literally, I think they're going to win by 3 points. And that's what the spread is, and I'll take it. I mean, Kyler Murray, what's crazy is last year they hit like 9 out of like the 16 overs. So it's pretty good. This year they've hit under every single game. Like, people think they like have this high-powered offense. They really don't, and they really get bad penalties. Like, they kill drives. Like, last night, like in the first half, they'd get like 10 yards called all the way back. Like, I don't know. I think this could go over. This maybe could be the week because the Seahawks defense is suspect, and people don't want to have that conversation at all. So
people definitely want to have.
I think I think Mr. Unlimited gets in the way, which is also still the worst nickname I've ever seen anyone give himself. I still think it's a joke. I'm waiting for the punt, like the April Fools, to come around, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Seahawks. I think they're gonna win just because they always win by like 3 fucking points.
I'll take the Seahawks. I mean, everybody falls in love whenever somebody beats the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know why this happens, but we did it with the
worst team in the league almost.
We did it with the Cleveland Browns, and the Cleveland Browns are exactly what we thought they were, and they got their brains beat in by the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'll take Seattle. I think it'll be a little further because I just don't think the secondary in Arizona is going to be able to keep up with Tyler Lockett, David Moore, and DK Metcalf are going to have huge days. Brandon?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Seahawks. I think we might see another Russell Wilson comeback. I think even though the Cardinals' offense isn't like super high powered, they can still put points up on the board in the Seattle defense. So I think we're going to see another comeback from Russell Wilson, Mr. MVP himself.
In 5 from 3 Niners take on the 2-3 New England Patriots. Peyton, do the Patriots fall 2 games under 500, or do they bounce back and get to 500?
I mean, dude, honestly, like, the game plan that they had last week, I mean, Kyle Shanahan dialed it up. Garoppolo looked healthier. He looked more comfortable. I think it really was like people were criticizing Garoppolo against Miami. I really don't think he should have even been out there. You could tell, at all. Like, people were like, oh, they're making an excuse. He's hurt. That's why they took him out. Like, he was definitely fucking hurt. Like, they probably, were like, he's definitely, he'll be fine. We'll give him that Toradol shot. And then they were out there about to play. He's like, oh, he didn't take the shot. And they're like, excuse me? He didn't get any meds or nothing? Oh, shit. Okay. So, I think the 49ers will win. I mean, and again, you don't know if the Patriots will get through a full week of practice. That's another thing. So, that matters now. I don't know what they're doing up there in New England. There isn't anything they're doing in Foxborough, so I don't know. But I'm going with the 49ers.
Brandon?
Yeah, I'll go with the Niners. I'll be interested to see what their injury report looks like before kickoff, just to see if they get any of those guys back, this week. But I think the Patriots they're playing with nobody. They're playing with nobody. I think they're trying to salvage their season right now, but the Niners they're gonna storm back. I think their offense is really good. I'm expecting Jimmy G to have a good game against Bill just to stick it to him. So I'll definitely take the Niners in this.
I'm going to take the Patriots. I think the Patriots win this football game. I think Bill Belichick, if they have a full week of practice, is going to have this team ready to play. They're going to work through some of their issues. The only thing they can't really fix is their offensive line is banged up, but this is nowhere near as difficult of a Niners front as it was last year. And I just think Cam Newton is going to come out and have a big day because I think he's very tired already of hearing all the comments and the negativity coming out after that game. And look, he was bad. Patriots were bad, period, in that game. So I think they're going to come out, chip on their shoulder, and I think they win at home over the Niners. 2 more games to get to. The Sunday night game in Las Vegas. We got the Raiders hosting the Buccaneers fresh off a blowout win over Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. Does anybody think the Raiders can win this game?
Yeah, I think they could. I think that they'll keep it close. I think that the Raiders coming off a bye, right?
Yes.
I think that always helps any team, especially a good coach team with Gruden. I think they can definitely keep what they had going against the Chiefs, that momentum, and they can carry on. I don't know. There's still something weird about the Buccaneers that, I don't know why I don't want to buy in yet. I just don't. I think they'll probably end up winning the NFC South. I don't think the Saints will beat them out for it. I think the Buccaneers will probably beat them when it comes down to it again because their defense is playing well, but I think the Raiders could. I'll take the Bucs for the sake, but I will make an argument. I think it'll be closer than people think.
It comes down to my trust in Derek Carr is still not there yet. I don't really trust this Tampa Bay team. I've been open about that, but
it's weird, right? Why don't we? We just saw Sunday. It's why?
I don't know what it is. I wish I could figure it out, but I think Tampa Bay wins just because Derek Carr is eventually going to play like Derek Carr, and he's going to have one of those games, and it could very well be against Tampa Bay. So I'm going to take the Buccaneers. Brandon, 3 for 3?
Yep. Yeah, I'm going to take the Bucs. I think Carlton Davis is playing amazing. If you guys aren't aware of Carlton Davis, please watch Buccaneers games. I mean, he was lights out in that Packers game. He's been lights out all season. I think he's going to be sort of a dark horse pick for Defensive Player of the Year because he's playing that good.
Real fast. 5-1 Bears, 4-2 Rams next Monday night. Who do we like?
I mean, I'm just going to go Rams. I don't understand how the Bears win football games. I don't get it. I just don't. It doesn't make sense. What the Panthers did last week, I don't know. I really don't. I get the Bears' defense is good and all that, but man, I just don't believe in the Bears. I don't think they're a 5-1 team. They shouldn't be 5-1. I don't know. And I think McVay whenever he comes off a loss, like I think he's just prepared. I think he's ready. Where is that game? Is it in Chicago or in LA?
In Los Angeles.
I was just saying, if they have to keep going out to the West Coast, the East Coast or the Midwest, I think Sean McVay is just going to lose it, like with this travel schedule they got set up with.
I'm gonna pick the Bears. I think their defense is only because of their defense. I really do not trust their offense, but that defense is really good. And Jared Goff, the Rams look more like they did 2 years ago, but still, it's just something about Jared Goff that makes me go, I'm going to pick against him. I'm going to take the Bears in like a 14-10 kind of ugly slugfest sort of game. Because I don't really see either offense having good days.
Well, yeah, I think Jared Goff is this guy, I watched him sail pass after pass after pass on Sunday, and like I don't get it. I don't get it. Like he has the time. His receivers get open. He's just not accurate. I don't understand what Jared Goff's issue. I can't really put my finger on it. I'll take the Bears in this one. I think their defense is gonna, maybe get a score, get a lot of key turnovers in that game. Yeah, I think they'll walk out in the ugly one too, Dave. I think it'll be close, but it'll definitely be
real fast. Upset pick of the week. Brandon, who's your upset pick of the week?
Sheesh. I don't know. Come back to me.
I will take the Cincinnati Bengals
to beat
the Cleveland Browns in the Battle of Ohio. I think the Bengals are just they're getting there. They're getting there. They had the Colts. They just can't finish it yet. But I think they got a little motivation, and I think Cleveland's going to have a pretty big letdown. I don't think they're going to get up for this game. Keep an eye. I think Cincinnati beats Cleveland this week. That's my upset pick. Peyton?
I'm going to go the Lions over the Falcons. I think this is like a very, very Atlanta letdown. They just they just put up an absurd amount of points. I feel like this will be a shootout kind of with Matty Stafford and Matty Ice. Like, I just think
the Mets.
Yes, exactly. Who the king of the Mats? Who gets to be the Mat King? Yeah. No, I'm gonna go with the Lions. I like them. They played pretty well last week. But I like Matthew Stafford here.
Brandon?
All right. Upset of the week, I'm going to bet against the Denver Broncos bringing one home against the Kansas City Chiefs in a close divisional matchup.
Wow.
Ballsy.
The Chiefs already dropped one to Oakland, or to Las Vegas, excuse me. Las Vegas.
You make a good point. The AFC West teams clearly have something going on against the Chiefs. They clearly figure out.
I think it's the Chiefs' defense, man. That secondary is very suspect. Like when we let the reins go off Josh Allen, he looked like he knew what to do all night with that secondary. But for some reason, we weren't allowing him to do what he needed to do. Like that secondary is not good. It hasn't been good for quite some time.
Yeah,
and I think the AFC West, they know how to exploit that second.
I've also moved to this point where I feel like Tyrann Mathieu always like a step behind everywhere where he needs to be. Like literally everywhere, and he always and he makes like a play out of nowhere. Like and you're like, okay, all right, I get it, and then but you're like, then you look and like they'll get a play like a bad call against him or whatever, and he's just losing his mind, and you're like, but like I feel like you should have been there to help with the defense right there.
He reminds me a lot of Marcus Peters in the fact that like they play for the ball, right? Like they don't play for the coverage, like they play for the ball. Like Marcus Peters is always in position to, I'm gonna bait you into making this throw, and then I'm gonna make the big play. And I think that's how Tyrann Mathieu plays too. Like. As great of a coverage guy as he is, I think he's that great because he baits you into these situations and then he always wins.
Yeah, they're two of the best gamblers, especially for like the NFL. Like they'll gamble for a play. Like Marcus Peters, I'm starting to move on the point that, Dave, he could be your kryptonite for your defense.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
That guy sold. I will freely admit, that guy checked out in the second half of the Eagle game. If you go back and look at the big plays the Eagles had to get themselves back into that game, it was 24 the majority of the time in coverage for the Ravens that they picked on. Now, the pass interference penalty, and we'll get out of here after this, the pass interference penalty on him shouldn't have been called because that was just a jump ball. Both guys, yeah, that was ticky-tacky at a wrong time to be ticky-tacky with the game on the line. But still, he checked out. And that's your issue with a guy like Marcus Peters is he's gonna check out from time to time. And he's done it before. But the secondary last year, I think, was better than the one that the Ravens had that kind of covered for you. You had better guys in the back end, even though Earl Thomas completely fucked up. And again, not saying that he deserves to be on that team, but he was better than Deshaun Elliott and Chuck Clark. He covered when guys like Marcus Peters tried to gamble and miss. So you're right. That's going to hurt the secondary because Marlon Humphrey is great.
Yeah, Marlon Humphrey is your best defensive player, and the peanut punch is just perfected at this point. I mean, it worries me going into next week when we play you guys. I also think I was going to say this earlier, Dave. If we win this week, I would be pretty positive we might lose the following week. The Steelers.
That's just a tough stretch. That's two physical games.
Like, what is Harbaugh's record after a bye? It has to be, ridiculous.
He's only lost, one game, I think, coming out of a bye. And that was the year Flacco was out.
Yeah, exactly. It's just – I can't imagine. I just can't imagine that it's
But the whole thing is, will the Ravens show up in a big game versus a good opponent, right? Because, if you're looking at the teams that they played the Week 1 Browns. The Browns have a winning record, but it was Week 1, so you can't count it. So they really haven't played anybody, with any substance. So when you look at the Steelers game, will they show up?
Yeah, I also think, fun fact, Ben Roethlisberger has never played in a game against Lamar Jackson. Crazy to think about. Though. So we'll see.
Is it?
Kind of. Because he's been in the league.
He was out.
He's been in the league for, 3 years now?
Yeah, and
Ben was hurt last year. You guys didn't play him until after the last Steelers game, I don't think.
Yeah.
Which was weird. Weird choice. Flacco's elite. Die on that hill. But yeah, I don't know. I think we're set up for a bad letdown spot if we win this game.
Go to parlaying with Peyton. We'll save all these comments for next week when the game is actually here.
We shall. We're just gonna go real quick. Seahawks -3, Packers -3. The Packers bounce back. I don't know what happened last week. It was the first 10 minutes of that game. I thought they were gonna blow them out 38-10, and that clearly didn't happen. And then I'm just going to go Bills -13 because I don't know how the Jets are going to score any points. I just don't. I really, even with the Bills being suspect right now, I just don't. I think they get it back on track, and I think Josh Allen's going to throw for 1 billion yards and assert his dominance.
I hope so.
I know so.
I hope so.
That's going to do it for this edition of the Opening Kickoff Podcast. Our thanks to Mark Medina, who joined us earlier. Next week, guys, I am excited about this. We've been talking about it all day amongst ourselves. Joining us next week, scheduled to, Quincy Avery, who is a quarterback guru, is the personal quarterback coach of Deshaun Watson. He's trained some other great quarterbacks in this league. We'll talk to him. We'll get his opinions on some of the quarterback play in the NFL. He may even give us a pick or two next week. But that is coming up next week. Again, you can find us on wherever you get your podcast. You can now watch us on YouTube. They will be up probably about Thursday morning. So for Brandon Stevens,
nobody circles the wagon like the Buffalo Bills, baby.
Peyton Gerard.
Have a good week, everybody.
I'm Dave Steinwaddle. So long. Stay safe. We'll talk to you next week.